This is Frazier, and I'm here with Kate. And Kate, tell me your last name.
My last name is Steadman.
And Kate, what's your company?
I am a real estate agent, but I'm also the vice president of operations for Choice Residential. We are the largest independent real estate brokerage in the Triangle, North Carolina area.
Well, aren't I lucky? Holy smokes! I stumbled upon the mother lode. This is fantastic. Okay, so Kate, tell me your Raleigh or Triangle story. What's your origin there?
Absolutely. I am a rare breed, it seems. I am someone who was born and raised in the Raleigh area. I grew up in Cary, so I lived there my whole life. I went to high school in Raleigh. I went to college at App State, and then after I graduated, I moved back and lived in Raleigh and became a real estate agent. So I lived in the Raleigh area for 30 plus years. I now travel between Raleigh and Austin, and so I now also have the perspective of someone who has relocated from big city to big city. But I have seen Raleigh evolve in a number of ways as we've kind of expanded outward and seen different pockets grow at different times. So I'd like to think that I know a lot about it, and yet I also recognize that sometimes when you live somewhere your whole life, you aren't the best at exploring it, like someone coming to the area new.
Absolutely.
So.
Right, right, right. Like I went to how long when was the last time you went to a Durham Bulls game?
Right, a very long time.
Right,
It
and
can
I
get,
I went
yeah,
there I went there 2 days ago. Look at me. I'm like a tourist and I went to the Durham Bulls.
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So explain the triangle to me. So we got Raleigh and then there's Durham. Is there another point to the triangle?
Yes, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill.
Okay.
That's kind of what they refer to as the triangle. There's also Research Triangle Park, which is kind of right around that area near the airport. It's where a lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of programming companies reside. And so there's just a high concentration of work within that area. But then we also have a number of universities, Duke, Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, NC State. And so we've got a lot of education as well.
So Durham is Duke, Chapel Hill is UNC, and then is NC State Raleigh?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so if I'm looking at Raleigh, if you're talking to somebody who's relocating, is there? And I know, like we mentioned, you said you grew up in Cary. I told you I stayed in Cary. Um, there's Apex. What are the other commu? Let's just focus on Raleigh. What are the other communities in Raleigh? Like the sort of distinct named communities in Raleigh.
Mm. So the nice part about Raleigh is if you're looking at it on a map, just the triangle as a whole, it almost looks like a bullseye, right? You've got Raleigh at the center of it, and everything kind of expands from there. So we can talk about any municipality that you'd like. But if we're talking about communities within Raleigh itself, there's a number of them. Obviously, you have downtown, that's where you're going to find bars and restaurants, but housing communities wise, you kind of have the South Raleigh area closer to NC State. No names necessarily, but kind of the Tryon Road area, big on investment properties, rentals for students, for example. You have North Hills, which is starting to get towards North Raleigh. It's a higher price point and kind of heading out towards the suburbs. And then up above that is where you start to have other communities like Bedford and just other little pockets. And so the triangle, for example, it's almost like every street is its own neighborhood. So we could talk endlessly about places like Five Points and Lafayette Village. These are some of the areas that have an influx of shops and restaurants and also housing. And so you might hear those names dropped around a good bit, but you go into almost any pocket and you'll find a community of some sort. But those are probably the ones you'll hear the most.
Okay, so just helping me understand that because it actually becomes important with what we do with Community Connect. So, I think there's a hub. Raleigh is a hub, and then I think in terms of communities, and usually that in my head turns into like almost like a high school pyramid, right? Like that's something that encompasses a high school, a middle school, and elementary schools, because then you really start getting down into neighborhoods. Now, I'm wondering if when you're talking about things like 5 Points, and tell me if I misread that or said that, but like, is 5 Points a neighborhood or is that a community? Are they the same thing?
They are, it's kind of both. It's definitely a neighborhood slash community. I'm not going to help us at all here when I say what I'm about to say, but
Okay.
the Triangle is a very unique area in terms of their school systems can be a little confusing. We have a lot of schools, elementary, middle school, and high school. And so we certainly can look in those pockets, but it's not uncommon for people to have options for where they can go because we also have charter schools and magnet schools and things like that.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, but typically, if we're kind of zooming in, North Hills, for instance, is along one of the highways. It's kind of it separates, in essence, the very top of downtown. Kind of, if you were to head straight, you're headed towards the suburbs. That's an area that has shops. There's a middle school and elementary school right around there. You've got a number of high schools that are close. And then you head farther out, like Falls of Neuse area, and you'll have a number of schools up there. So when we talk about communities in terms of what you just asked, it's kind of all of the above.
I gotcha. Okay. And it's funny. You just said Falls of Noose, and I was like, that's a good one for me to ask about because when I go into towns, when I'm traveling around, I always mispronounce things, and it's funny, right? Because it immediately reveals you as a tourist. So, are there other good, like at least I'm not pronouncing it Raleigh, right?
Right.
Or, but like, what are some things that are they're like local. They're you know how to pronounce them, but other people come in and mispronounce them.
Right. The one that will give you away is Fuquay Varina.
Yes, I think
Um,
I've seen that one. I was like, I didn't
that
even
one
want to
is
try
hard.
that. I figured I'd get slapped if I said that one wrong, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's another municipality. It's a city that's a little bit farther out. But the nice thing about the Triangle is pretty much anywhere is a good 30 to 45 minutes drive. So it doesn't matter where you are, there's a lot of access to all of the other cities and towns that are
Mm,
close by.
okay, okay. And so you were talking about downtown, and I'm trying to remember. Other than Cary and Apex a little bit, I don't remember how much exploring I did. But like, what are the places when you're like, okay, I want to go shopping, or I want to go out for a beer, or go out, and listen to music. What are the pockets? What are the crawl zones in and around Raleigh? And maybe
Right.
if you're trying to stay away from the other thing when you're in college towns, right, is that you have two experiences. You can go hang out in the college streets, or you can go out hang out with adults. So what's it like down there?
Yeah, you've certainly got options. So if we're looking at Raleigh, you do have downtown, obviously bars and restaurants there. We also have Red Hat Amphitheater, which is an outdoor music venue. It's one of my
Yes,
favorite places
yes, I remember
to
that.
see live music because they get some really big people that come in there. It's right in downtown, so you've got quite a view, but then it's also live music outside, which is wonderful. So that I would definitely recommend that. I know I have endlessly mentioned North Hills. They have a lot of shopping, so kind of your big name spots like Lululemon and that type of store you can find there. Um, and then another big one is going to be South Point Mall. So that's on 40 as you're headed towards Durham or Chapel Hill. It's a large mall where there is a good mix of indoor and outdoor shops, all of the big names, and you've got a lot of dining. It's not really where you would go to go down or go out at night, for
Hmm,
instance,
hmm.
but it is a great option if you're looking for somewhere to shop.
And
And
so how about the other thing? How about if you are looking for like, I mean, is there are there bars? Are there live music? Or is there live music? Like, is there a fun? I mean, obviously, Red Hat would be live music like that, but I mean, I'm like Nashville level live music or Austin. You're now in Austin. You know what Sixth Street's like. Is there stuff like that in Raleigh?
Um, I mean, your downtown Raleigh is kind of segmented into two areas. You've got sort of the Glenwood side of things, which is a little more west, and then you've got kind of your centralized downtown area, and those will have kind of your standard bars or clubs. We don't have as many live music. You certainly, unfortunately, cannot compare it to Austin or Nashville. I'm sure it would just kind of depend on the night.
Hmm.
Some places may have some bands that they might be featuring, but now granted, I am of the age where I am no longer going downtown at
Yes,
that night, so
yes,
I could
understood,
very well just be
understood.
out of the loop of it. But there aren't that many places that immediately come to mind in terms of looking for live music. It would be something that you'd kind of want to keep an eye out for. But in the summertime, for instance, North Hills will do a summer music series. And so they'll do kind of in the middle of their not park area, but kind of the central area of the shopping center that will block it all off. You can bring your chairs, you can listen to live music. And so you can find a good bit of that. And then, occasionally a brewery or something like that will have live music as well.
Do the different, like I mentioned Apex and Cary just because I'm familiar with or was there, but like do the different communities like that size, do they have distinct personalities? Like, is it like, oh, if you're a young family, Apex is the great place to be. Or if you're down to, if you're young and you're wanting to live in an apartment and whatever, then you live downtown. Or and like Apex is different than Cary is different than fill in the Frenchy Fuqua or whatever you said, Fuquay Varina, those types of things. Are there distinct community personalities?
I would say so, and I think it just depends on what you're looking for and also on the season. So, Cary, for instance, in the summer, does a really good job of doing little pop-ups, um, like farmers markets and art vendor type things downtown, especially during the summer. Cary, if we're looking at a map, Cary is directly west of Raleigh. It was one of the first municipalities off of Raleigh to be established, and
Hmm.
so it's older, but it's definitely had kind of a revival. They've done a ton of work in downtown Cary, both in terms of the shops and restaurants in the little downtown strip, but they also have a huge project where they overhauled the downtown Cary Park. It has a gorgeous library, a massive park. They actually have a little beer garden in the park itself, and
Oh, wow.
so it definitely draws in quite a crowd of different ages and different things to do. Morrisville is kind of above northwest of Cary, and it's a very small area. That's definitely going to put you in close proximity to the airport. So a lot of people that travel often for work find a lot of value in living there just because you're right there. But there's not that much housing because it's such a small municipality.
Hmm.
Apex, which is southwest of Cary, is similar to Cary in that it has pockets that are a little bit older. All of these areas are forever evolving, and so they have a really cute downtown area. They do a lot downtown. Same thing with Holly Springs and Fuquay. I know Fuquay will close down its streets. It has a really cute downtown, and so I think it's just a matter of staying in the loop.
Hmm.
And then, so those are kind of the ones where if you want things to do and options, especially downtown and kind of community oriented, all of those have great options. And then on the other side, you've got Nightdale. And so Nightdale is east of Raleigh. It is something that is in the process of being developed, but it goes through phases. I feel like the West Triangle is forever expanding. Nightdale has little surges of it, and
Uh-huh.
it's really nice because it can feel far out, but it's just a 20-minute drive to downtown. And so if someone is looking for that downtown lifestyle, but not that downtown price point, Nightdale can be a really good option. You can find some new construction or at least some resale at a very decent price point that will still have you feeling that way. But it's also not a far drive.
So, what's your community? Do you live in Austin or do you live in Raleigh? I can't tell now, right
I
now.
live in Austin at this point,
Gotcha.
but I
Okay.
lived in Raleigh for a long time. And
Hmm.
so for a long time, I lived just south of downtown. I really loved that area. We have a really cool farmers market in
Hmm.
downtown Raleigh that is set up every day of the week, but especially on the weekends. It's massive, it's covered. You can find a ton of local produce at an affordable price, not to mention flowers and plants. I highly recommend it. And
And what's that community called? The one that that you were in south of Raleigh? What was that
Um,
called?
it's
Anything?
mainly just kind of the Tryon Road
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Tryon Road, Gorman Street, just kind of south of NC State. Yep. And so that's where I lived for a long time. And then I also lived in North Raleigh. As I got a little bit older, I lived up closer to 540.
Hmm.
And I really like that area because you can hop on 540 and be in Durham in a solid, 30 to 45 minutes. I can be in Cary to visit family in 30 minutes. I can be in the North Hills area for work within 30 minutes. And so it was very centralized as well. And
And
nice
so,
convenience for students.
when you were in your area, the Tryon Road area, what were some
Mhm.
of your favorite spots there, or the one north of Raleigh? I just want you to dig into a community, kind of like give, whether it's giving a shout out or insider secrets or whatever, and it's okay that you're not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, living in Tryon Road, I was definitely just more the downtown scene. You can be in downtown in a solid 15 minutes normally, and so that's probably where I spent a lot of my time in those days. In North Raleigh, though, I spent a lot of time in Lafayette Village, and so um, there's a number of coffee shops there. They also will do little meet and greets. They've got a sushi restaurant, an amazing sandwich shop. Um, a coffee shop that I really loved there is called Jubala. They've got great coffee. They also would do a side of bacon that you could just order, which I loved. I'm not sure if they do that anymore, but I that was where I spent a lot of time because it was very close. They also have a Lifetime Fitness up that way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
And are there, so I was in a really nice park around a lake in Cary. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a nice walk. And are there, what are some of your favorite parks or kind of shady, watery escapes in and around Raleigh?
Yeah, I love Falls Lake. And so up where I used to live, kind of that Falls of New Bedford area, or Durant Trails, there is a massive lake called Falls Lake, and it has a number of access points. And so that's somewhere that I really enjoy. I would go and you can park either close to the dam and just kind of stay around the water, or you can park at kind of their entrance lot and walk the trails, and it's just gorgeous. It's heavily treed, so even on a hot day, you'll be in shade, um, and you can walk down near the water. And yeah, it's just a really good time. A great place to bring pets or friends or family for sure.
And then one more question about Raleigh, and then I can either let you go or I can ask you a couple questions about Austin. But are there like what are the kind of popular, let's say, apartment buildings or places for people to live who are younger or new to the city and in and around Raleigh or maybe in Raleigh? Do you know? Like, would you know that or not?
That's a good question. I don't feel as familiar with that. I
Gotcha.
would say it's like any other area that has a lot of inbound migration. You can throw a rock and find an apartment complex, you
Hmm.
know? So I
Hmm.
feel like
Hmm.
there are endless options. The one that I was really familiar with living there were the ones right around Wade and Oberlin Road,
Hmm.
because they had really good access to downtown. They also are, Oberlin Road or Wade Avenue will easily put you on 40, which will get you west very quickly. And so that's a good centralized location, I would say.
Yeah, and I cheated because I had one more question before we left Raleigh. Is what are things that you, when you were here, what were things that you looked forward to? Like whether those are festivals or activities, like what were the kind of, oh my God, I can't wait for in July when this happens, or can't wait for September when this happens.
Oh, that's a great question. And that's definitely one where I feel like it pays to be a tourist in your own city. And I wasn't the best at sometimes, but I will say I think it's just finding those routines that you really love. So as silly as it sounds, I always loved going to the Raleigh Farmers Market on the weekends.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not exactly what you asked, but as someone who has moved away, one of the things that I love most about living in the Triangle is the access to everywhere else in the state in a drive. So you can easily do a 2-hour drive and be in Wilmington at the beach, and even just do a day trip there. You can drive 3 hours and you're in the mountains. And just having that ability, you could do a quick trip up to DC or down to Charleston. There's just so much drivability. And so, I know there's a ton of things like the Bluegrass Festival, which I don't know if they do anymore, or things like that. They have a ton of food truck rodeos that you can look forward to or find.
Hmm.
But the thing that I always loved was a quick getaway that you can do by car, do it impromptu, and it's all in a drive.
I love it. I love it.